Welcome to Golden Fortune Leo, the place where we respect your time, speak plainly, and give you tools you can actually use. I am your longtime researcher, equal parts astrologer, social psychologist, novelist at heart, and a student of Buddhist discipline. Today we study a moment of spiritual justice for Leo, the instant when truth stops knocking politely and simply enters, not to punish but to restore. Picture a quiet room at dusk, the city breathing through the window frame, your name steady in your chest. The doorbell sounds, not loud, just precise. At the threshold stand a police officer and a woman with a photograph. Your photograph. The mind asks why now, but the deeper intelligence you carry already understands timing, because fire teaches patience, and the sun that rules Leo obeys cycles, not moods. The woman's voice is small at first. She speaks like someone who has carried a heavy box up too many flights of stairs and finally sets it down. The officer's gaze is not cold. It is the look of order returning to a space that had been rearranged by shadows. This is the setup, but the lesson is not entertainment. The lesson is that truth has weight, and weight clarifies posture. Leo, you have learned to stand tall in rooms that were built low. You have been generous where others were careless. You have also played roles, the brave survivor, the endlessly forgiving friend, the person who says I am fine while your intuition taps its foot. Even the sun experiences an eclipse. What matters is the reappearance. As she speaks, she names the misuse of your name, the way false stories borrowed your reputation like a costume, and the way your kindness made it easy for others to assume permission. If you feel a sting, it is the antiseptic kind. The officer adds a sentence that matters. Justice is not only verdicts. Justice is also truth entering a room and staying until everyone sits in the correct chair. In that line your spine remembers itself. You do not need noise. You need alignment. From an astrological lens, this is a transit of restoration, the type of moment that often arrives when fire signs grow tired of being polite with distortion. From a psychological lens, the pattern is classic, a conflict avoidance strategy that kept the peace while taxing the nervous system. From a Buddhist lens, this is right seeing, not fantasy, not revenge, the quiet precision of naming things correctly and releasing attachment to outcome. Humor helps here, because Leo leads with heart, and a warm heart handles truth faster. So let us be clear and a little amused. You once tried to manage other people's feelings like a small company with unlimited overtime. The board has voted to close that department. You will offer empathy and clarity, not free public relations for the dishonest. You look again at the photograph. It used to carry static. Now it carries signal. This is not proof of your pain. It is evidence of your continuity. The story is not that they fooled you. The story is that you still know who you are. The chosen ones do not avoid trials. They metabolize them. The year of triumph 2025 is not a fantasy on a calendar. It is a training effect. You trained your attention to stop leaking energy into every passing narrative, and now attention returns as confidence. Energy, honor, and control come back in that order. Energy returns as boundaries that are calm and non-negotiable. Honor returns as the refusal to audition for roles that shrink you. Control returns as mastery over your own reaction, because self-regulation is the lion's real roar. The woman who arrives with confession is not the villain of this chapter. She is a messenger, the final piece of a complex puzzle that needed an honest corner to finish the image. You do not have to seek revenge. You also do not need to perform forgiveness on a deadline. Forgiveness is not saying it is fine. Forgiveness is saying it is finished. You end the transaction. You stop carrying balances that are not yours. This is spiritual economics, cause and effect balanced without your micromanagement. This is not a story about a photograph. It is a story about reclamation, about how a Leo learns to take their name back from the world that borrowed it without permission. Imagine standing there as the truth arrives, not with fireworks but with precision, as if the universe is tidying up after years of narrative clutter. A woman says she knows what they did with your name, and suddenly air becomes heavier, awareness sharper. It is the moment when self-recognition outpaces confusion. You remember how easily you've trusted, assuming that everyone who basked in your warmth carried their own light. That is the Leo paradox. The heart assumes others are built like it, open, loyal, and fearless until life proves otherwise. You are the sign of radiance, but you have also been the sign of projection. People see your confidence and think it means you never bleed. They mistake your generosity for approval, as if you hand out emotional visas to anyone who smiles convincingly. Yet this chapter isn't about exposure, it's about retrieval. You're not here to drag ghosts into daylight. You're here to pick up the parts of yourself that others misplaced. When truth finally arrives, it doesn't kick down the door. It just stands there, calm and self-assured, the way a lion stands in tall grass, no explanation necessary. The officer in the doorway becomes less of a cop and more of an archetype. Justice doesn't always come through courts, he says. Sometimes it arrives through confession. And in that instant, the air stills. This isn't randomness. This is choreography. Cosmic choreography. The kind that the chosen ones experience when the universe decides it's time to adjust the scale between who you were and who you've become. It's like a divine audit, and surprise you getting reimbursed for emotional expenses long overdue. You tremble, but not with fear. The body shakes when it releases something old. You feel like a sealed room that's just been ventilated. Memories tumble out, times you ignored intuition, laughed through betrayal, and nodded through manipulation because you were too well-mannered to interrupt the illusion. That's the Leo curse. You forgive too soon and speak too late. But that curse breaks today. Her words land like small lightning strikes, not destructive but clarifying. Each shock burns away a layer of denial. For the first time in a long time, clarity replaces the adrenaline of anger. The photograph glows faintly in the dying light, and you realize it was never proof you needed, it was permission. Permission to stop explaining yourself to people who were never listening. Permission to stop proving innocence in rooms that already decided guilt. The officer speaks again, softer now. Justice isn't punishment. It's restoration. And something in you rearranges. You used to think forgiveness was surrender. You thought letting go meant losing. But letting go is how the universe hands you back your crown untarnished, heavier with truth, and fitted exactly to the size of your resilience. The air shifts again. Light feels sentient now, brushing your shoulders like approval. You look down at that photograph, the artifact of pain that has turned into a relic of power. What once hurt now hums. This isn't evidence anymore. It's resurrection. This moment is the threshold of your year of triumph 2025, not because you'll win every battle, but because you finally understand that victory isn't a performance. You don't need to fight every war to prove you're strong. Your heart has matured beyond defense. It operates now in the higher language of discernment. You recall those nights when you whispered to the ceiling, "When will I be free?" The answer comes quietly through realization. Freedom never waits for apologies. It arrives the moment you stop auditioning for peace in other people's stories. Forgiveness doesn't mean pretending it didn't happen. It means you refuse to carry the consequences of someone else's immaturity any longer. Freedom isn't granted, it's reclaimed. And that, Leo, is what separates the chosen ones from the constantly wounded. The chosen ones are not selected to suffer, they are drafted to transmute suffering into strength. They take betrayal and convert it into data, heartbreak into design. They're living proof that no shadow can outlast sunlight if the sun refuses to quit. It's an alchemy the world misunderstands. The lion doesn't roar out of anger, it roars out of awareness. It's the sound of someone realizing they've been the lesson all along. In society, people often praise resilience as if it's a trophy, but for Leos, it's muscle memory. You've been practicing grace under pressure since the first time someone underestimated you. Psychologically, this is individuation, the process of pulling back projections and claiming your full identity, including the parts that others tried to edit. Spiritually, it's enlightenment through exhaustion. You grow tired of pretending and in that fatigue discover peace. Philosophically, it's stoicism wearing a crown, control what you can, release what you can't, and keep the heart warm in a cold system. Of course, humor sneaks in, because what's a Leo story without flair? Think of it, you've been paying emotional rent in apartments that didn't have your name on the lease. The eviction notice has finally arrived, but you're the landlord. You're reclaiming your property, your image, your narrative. There's almost comedy in it, the way the universe waits until you stop caring to deliver everything you once begged for. Timing, apparently, is divine but also a bit mischievous. The light deepens. The air smells of endings, the good kind, the kind that clear space. You feel the presence of a quiet force, one that doesn't demand worship but expects participation. That's the truth of justice. It doesn't hand you closure, it invites you to co-author it. You look again at the photograph, and you realize it's been misfiled. It doesn't belong in the archive of wrongs, it belongs in the anthology of rebirth. Every shadow in that image only proves the presence of light. From a psychological standpoint, this is what healing actually looks like. Not perfect serenity, not Instagram-worthy balance, but the moment when you stop flinching at your own reflection. From a Buddhist lens, this is right understanding the dissolution of illusion, the acceptance that cause and effect need no applause. From an astrological lens, the sun that rules you returns to its rightful position, illuminating what was once hidden in your 8th house, the domain of transformation and secrets. You are literally living your chart. So you sit there in the warm silence of realization, and for once, you don't need to narrate it. You don't need witnesses. The lesson has been recorded in the only place that matters, your nervous system, your light. You laugh softly, not out of cynicism but recognition. It's that distinct Leo humor, a mix of pride and grace. The same laughter that says, "I survived it, but look how elegantly I did." You won't waste time proving innocence or relitigating old pain. You've upgraded from courtroom drama to spiritual documentary. The woman's confession fades into memory. The officer's words echo like law etched in gold. Justice is restoration. The rest is commentary. You stand taller, not because you need to, but because gravity finally feels cooperative again. The photograph no longer defines you. It reminds you. And the story that began as theft ends as triumph. Because when a Leo reclaims their name, even the universe pauses to applaud. It is strange how room can become sacred without warning. One moment you are standing in your own living room, the next it feels like a temple, air thick, golden, aware. The officer's posture changes first. He's no longer a representative of the law but a living symbol of balance, the kind of order that doesn't come from statutes but from the quiet intelligence of the cosmos. He doesn't speak again, because he doesn't need to. His silence declares something final, everything that needed to correct itself already has. That's how divine justice works. It doesn't hold press conferences or send notifications, it rebalances the invisible. The apology you thought you needed will probably never arrive, but peace will, because balance always replaces explanation. Those who betrayed you will meet themselves in mirrors they can't avoid, not because you wished them pain, but because you finally stopped carrying their lessons. The universe has an odd sense of humor, it lets everyone grade their own tests eventually. And the woman who once trembled holding your photograph, the supposed antagonist of your story, suddenly looks different. You see her as a messenger. Maybe she didn't know it, but the universe used her to deliver closure with a human face. She carried guilt, you carried grief. And now, both burdens have been stamped return to sender. That is when the next chapter begins, the alchemy of forgiveness. You used to think forgiveness meant pretending the fire never burned. But no, forgiveness means saying, the fire burned and I'm still standing. It is not surrender. It is emotional evolution. It is the day you decide that peace is not a group project. You are ruled by the sun, and even the sun burns to stay alive. It doesn't apologize for its heat. Neither should you apologize for growing too bright for the people who preferred you dimmed. The photograph on the table looks harmless now, like an artifact in a museum of past identities. It no longer drips with memory. Every scar once hidden has turned into a wisdom line, your new map of constellations. You don't erase the past, you reinterpret it, the way art curators clean smoke off an old painting and discover color that was always there. Growth isn't about pretending the wound is gone. It's about learning how to light it from within. You laugh a little, half disbelief, half liberation. That's classic Leo humor, the kind that shows up once the tears have done their job. Only a Leo could turn trauma into a performance worth applause. You've carried expectations so long that freedom feels almost suspicious, like a silence you need to double check. But this time, the quiet is not absence, it's accuracy. Outside, the sky deepens, the light stretches across the floor like a ribbon of benediction. This isn't a sunset, it's a coronation. You can almost hear the universe whispering a list of returns, 3 gifts to mark your graduation from survival to sovereignty. Energy because you will no longer leak your vitality into situations that cannot reflect it. Honor because you've remembered that worth is self-evident, not a democracy. Control not over people, but over your own emotional climate. This is the trinity of freedom, and you earned it the hard way. You learned that healing doesn't make you naive again, it makes you precise. You no longer confuse empathy with access. The silence between you, the officer, and the woman feels like prayer, but not the pleading kind, the thankful kind. You don't need to say thank you aloud. Gratitude radiates through your chest like warmth through metal. You understand that none of this was meant to ruin you. It was a cosmic delivery system for strength. The universe's logistics may be slow, but it never misplaces packages. When they leave, the house feels altered, quieter but not empty. Space itself feels aware. You sit with that photograph again, tracing its edges. What once represented violation now feels like certification, a diploma in self-knowledge. Every betrayal was a tutor in disguise. Every loss was a private boot camp in resilience. You start laughing again, softer this time. How many times did you think the universe had ghosted you, only to realize it was answering in delayed messages? You realize that revenge is such a tired script. Alignment is the real thrill now. True justice doesn't need a gavel. It needs awareness. You've stopped auditioning for fairness, you've started embodying it. There is something comedic and holy about realizing how little effort divine balance actually needs. You spent years thinking you had to chase it, file emotional paperwork, argue your case. But the universe has its own legal system, and it's absurdly efficient. It handles karma like a patient accountant, slow, exact, and uninterested in drama. You can almost picture it, a lion stalking through tall grass, calculating every movement with elegance. Justice doesn't roar. It prowls. It restores order cell by cell, thought by thought, until peace feels like your natural habitat again. This is the real cosmic courtroom, Leo, the one inside you. The jury is composed of your conscience, your memory, and your higher self. The verdict is already in, you win by release. The sentence is freedom. The closing statement is laughter. And as you sit there in that twilight glow, a new kind of humor rises in you, the humor of someone who has seen enough of life's absurdities to stop being shocked by them. You understand now that enlightenment isn't sterile or solemn, it's playful. The enlightened person doesn't float above pain, they see through it. And that's what you've done. You stand up, stretch, feel your spine realign with gravity. You're no longer the character who needed justice to feel whole. You are just as quiet, warm, luminous, and unbothered. The room around you hums with completion. This is not the end of your story, it's the moment the story starts telling itself differently. The photograph still lies on the table, a relic of the old frequency, but your gaze has shifted. You see it the way the universe sees everything, without blame, without fear, just awareness. That's the real power of Leo. The sun doesn't remember the storms, it only remembers that it rose afterward. And so will you, every single time. The air has changed. It moves differently now, as though the universe itself just exhaled after holding its breath for years. The breeze drifts through the curtains, soft but full of quiet ceremony, carrying that scent of something new, something reborn yet familiar. The photograph, once heavy with history, catches one last shimmer of light before dusk takes it away. You look at it, not with judgment but with understanding, and you smile. This is rebirth, Leo. Not the kind with fireworks and social media announcements, but the real kind, the kind that happens in silence when your soul finally clicks back into its rightful place. It's not dramatic. It's honest. It's peace, stripped of performance. And it's funny, isn't it? The moment you stop trying to prove your worth to the world suddenly starts recognizing it. The second you stop chasing light, you discover it was coming from inside you the whole time. For a sign ruled by the sun, that irony feels almost poetic. You used to think peace was a prize you had to earn after a long fight, but now you know it's simply a choice, a refusal to keep renting space in your mind to chaos. Letting go doesn't mean losing control, it means regaining command of your own rhythm. You stop being a reaction to everyone else's noise and start becoming the melody that sets the tempo. Night has fallen, and you find yourself sitting by the window, watching the city breathe. The lights blink like distant stars, small, constant, indifferent, eternal. You take a deep breath, slow and deliberate. For the first time in a long time, it doesn't feel like survival. It feels like understanding. The year of triumph 2025 won't hand you blessings on a silver platter. It's not a game show, it's a mirror. It will hold your reflection until you can look at it without flinching. The universe isn't testing you anymore, it's trusting you. It knows you've absorbed the lesson. Truth doesn't come to punish, it comes to purify. You've crossed the line between reaction and awareness, and now you stand on the other side as both the student and the proof. You are no longer just part of the story, you are the threshold itself. The old narrative of injustice, betrayal, and self-doubt has collapsed under its own weight, and from its dust rises something almost holy, you, stripped of illusions, untangled from other people's projections. You are what the universe has been sculpting all along, the embodiment of balance, the walking definition of divine justice. You are the quiet lion who doesn't need to roar to command respect, the one who knows that silence can be louder than any declaration. And yes, people will notice. Some will say you've changed, as if that's an accusation. Smile when they say it, because they're right. You have. That's what evolution looks like. Growth has a way of confusing those still committed to their own stagnation. The world will still be noisy, full of urgent opinions and recycled drama, but inside you, silence will reign like a monarch. It won't be empty silence, it will be charged, humming with calm confidence and that rare humor only Leos understand, the joy of surviving your own legend. Because that's exactly what this year has been, a myth rewritten, a hero's journey in reverse. You went through darkness not to find the light, but to remember you were the source of it all along. You glance around the room, the same walls, the same furniture, but everything feels alive now. The chair by the window that once held your tired body now feels like a witness to your becoming. The walls that heard your doubts now echo your clarity. Even the air seems to know it's in the presence of something changed. You whisper a quiet thank you, not directed at anyone in particular but offered to the invisible rhythm that carried you here. Thank you for not ending when it hurt, you say. Because it could have. You could have closed off, dimmed down, folded in. But you didn't. You stayed long enough for the pain to finish teaching and for the truth to start healing. You stayed until the meaning revealed itself. The photograph on the table, once a curse, now feels like an invitation, an artifact proving that the past wasn't a punishment but a curriculum. Everything it showed you, everything it took from you, was part of the same education, how to become light without burning out. Somewhere inside, the voice of your true self, the steady, golden, unshakable Leo heart rises up and answers. It doesn't shout, it simply states a truth so deep you feel it rather than hear it. Welcome home, chosen one. That's when you understand what this journey was really about. Not about vindication, not about reclaiming an old crown, but about realizing you were never dethroned in the first place. You were just learning to stop lending your crown to people who hadn't earned the right to wear it. The power you thought you lost was only ever misplaced, hidden beneath layers of doubt and noise. Now, it's back. Not loud, but steady. The kind of strength that doesn't need an audience to exist. So where do you go from here, Leo? You live. You live boldly, generously, without apology. You wake up each morning not trying to prove anything, but simply to participate, to experience what it feels like to be fully present in your own light. You give, not out of guilt but out of abundance. You love, not to heal others, but because you are healed enough to love without losing yourself. And yes, laugh often, especially at the parts of life that used to terrify you. Laughter is a form of enlightenment too, the universe's way of saying, see? You survived. This is your moment to enjoy being alive without constantly preparing for the next trial. The cosmic court is adjourned. The karmic scales have balanced. You don't need to defend your goodness or justify your peace. Just live it. Let the rest unfold. And while you're at it, take this moment to share that light outward. Because someone out there might still be standing where you once stood, tired, doubting, waiting for a sign. Be that sign. Remind them that truth heals, that peace is not passive, and that rebirth doesn't always roar. Sometimes, it just breathes. If this message resonates with you, if it helps you remember who you are and where you're heading, take a second to like, share, and subscribe to Golden Fortune Leo. This channel exists for you, for every lion who forgot their crown but never lost their light. Together, we explore astrology, psychology, and the quiet genius of the human spirit. Because here, Leo, we don't just predict your destiny, we help you understand it. You've earned this peace. Now enjoy it.